What's up? Welcome to Late Night Stream, where I'm doing not one, but two streams tonight because I'm an absolute mad woman. And it's kind of like, is there any difference between one late night stream that lasts for 3 hours and two late night streams that last for 3 hours so I can cover two different topics separately? Jesus Christ. I don't know if I truly don't know if I'm going to make it through these streams with my voice. We're going to find out. My voice is like hanging in today. I think I'm starting to feel a little bit better. I'm really hoping I'm going to actually be able to get some recording done this weekend, but that's not what I want to talk about right now. What I want to talk about starting off tonight, if I can get my screen together, is Timcast got a hold of the Project Veritas letter. How interesting. And they got a hold of the full letter. So we can actually see this thing is 11 pages long. So we can actually see what the very specific accusations are against James O'Keefe. And that's what we're going to be doing in stream number 1 today, is looking at this letter, analyzing this letter. I don't want to read no other commentary. I don't care what other people have to say about it. I want to read the letter for myself. I have not looked at it. You will be seeing my live reaction on the screen. And I want to tell you from an organizational psychology perspective what I think this means. Now, I know I'm going to talk about Joshua's stream in a second. Hang on. If you missed last night's stream, then you'll know that I was kind of covering the James O'Keefe getting pushed out of Project Veritas hostile takeover live. For those of you who may not know what's going on and want to be caught up, essentially yesterday it was announced that James O'Keefe was getting removed from his position as the head of Project Veritas because the board engaged in a hostile takeover. And I did a whole stream about it as it was opening up and as it was starting to break. And the conclusion that I came to at the end of that stream was that the charges that were being made against James O'Keefe were bullshit. And I posted a clip of that on the channel this morning. I'm actually pretty proud of myself that I came to that conclusion, to be honest. And the basis for me saying that the charges against him were bullshit is because you're telling me that a third of the staff at Project Veritas turned against you and there's no video evidence at Project Veritas? You're telling me there was no video evidence of James O'Keefe acting like a crazy person when 1/3 of the staff at Project Veritas hates him so much that they're engaging in a coup? That didn't sit right with me. If there is any organization in the world that should have video evidence, it's Project Veritas. And so I called it last night. And now, at least the one thing that I did see from this letter today, and I think it was Tim saying it, I think Tim said that this letter is a little fishy. And that maybe people have already come out and be like, I don't even know, I don't even agree with this letter. So we're going to read the letter and we're going to look at the article that Timcast wrote in the first stream tonight. And that should take us to around about 11:30 if I've done my job. I'm going to try my very best to get it done by 11 because I know there are people to Sin's chat earlier. I know there are people that want to watch Joshua's stream tonight. Joshua, by the way, guys, if you are interested in crime and astrology, Joshua has a stream that he's going to be starting at 11 where he is doing the astrology of crime. And I feel really bad, to be honest, because when I scheduled this late night stream this morning or this afternoon, I forgot that Joshua was doing it tonight. I forgot. And it's not that I forgot he was doing the stream. It's that I forgot what day it was. And so I overbooked. And so I want everyone to know, I would encourage everyone that wants to go to Joshua's stream to go to Joshua's stream. I will follow up and watch Joshua's true crime stream later. But I want everyone to know I'm not going to, and these recordings will always be here. So you don't have to watch this live. I just wanted to cover these two stories like tonight. But I want to encourage everyone, if you want to go to Joshua's premiere, I want people to support Joshua and like especially the regular stuff like that. Don't feel like you need to stay here. Please go watch his stuff. I will remind you when we're getting back to around about 11 o'clock. If you don't want to go watch his stuff, then stay here. We'll talk about Project Veritas. So that's what we're going to do on stream number 1. Now, after stream number 1, I'm going to end the stream we're watching now, and you should, if I have set things up correctly, you should be directed to stream number 2. And the reason I'm doing 2 separate streams is I'm doing 2 completely different topics, and I just wanted people who were kind of watching and just trolling around YouTube to know what they were getting into. And so we're going to do a separate stream in which I'm going to talk about Shane Cashman's Eliza Blue article part 2, and I'm particularly going to talk about let me see. I don't think I have it on the screen. I'm going to particularly talk about the part in Shane Cashman's part 2 article where he basically tells the outrage mob that he's not going to interact with them at all, and no, he doesn't care what they think. And we're going to watch some reaction videos. We're going to watch the quartering react to Shane Cashman. We're also going to watch just a little bit of Chrissy Mayer. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to read the entire Shane Cashman article because Shane Cashman is a very long form writer, and my voice isn't going to hold up for that. But we will take a scan of it. I did look at it earlier, and quite frankly, guys, it kind of seems to vindicate Eliza Blue, which I always said was going to happen. Not that I'm patting myself on the back too much, but I always said that I thought that was going to happen because the outrage mob did not present any conclusive evidence at all to support their claims. None at all. And it was just all out of context. It was twisted to mean the worst possible thing it could. It was ridiculous. As someone who's had mobs come at them like this, it was very easy for me to identify. No, Tim did not do a 180 and apologize, and I know that because I just watched the clip that Tim did. And this is what I'm talking about when I say people twist things and take them out of context. Tim apologized, but not really. Not for what you're insinuating he apologized for. This is what I'm saying when people take things and twist them out of context. He apologized to the quartering because he wants the fighting to stop, not because Tim thinks he's wrong. Sorry, Tim doesn't think he's wrong about this. I just watched the clips. So, for those of you who want to continue, and we're going to deal with this more on the second stream, I hope, than on this one. For those of you who want to continue to read about my opinion on this situation, which is now being proven correct based on the evidence that's actually being presented, y'all sound like a bunch of fucking leftists who are reading about Kyle Rittenhouse not getting found not guilty because the evidence didn't back up what you wanted it to say. But we're going to deal with that in the second stream. That's right. Tim is only apologizing because he doesn't want to fight. That's why. All right, guys. Now, before we get into it, I just want to remind everyone that I am posting a lot of stuff on my Substack. My Substack is my home base for my content. I do have an article up today on the Substack about the hostile takeover and James O'Keefe getting forced out of Project Veritas. And basically what this article says, let me just find something in the chat. I should have favorited it, but I didn't see it. Hang on. I'm looking for Miss Gabrielle Clark, who said that the 501c3 is the problem. I know I saw it. Oh, no. Maybe I won't be able to find. Yes, here it is. This article essentially agrees with Gabrielle Clark, where she says, I believe the 501c3 is the mistake. The basis of my article is not so much about the hostile takeover itself or how it happened, although it does talk about that a little bit. The basis of this article is what we can learn from the hostile takeover at Project Veritas, because it's my contention that the fact that this is a nonprofit, a 501c3, and they also have a 501c4, this is the problem. This is what led to James O'Keefe's downfall and ousting from this organization. And I write about why, I think that activism should be a for-profit, private endeavor with no board. Like, you can obviously have private businesses that have boards if you want to sell stock and things like that. But I am very much a believer that when you have an activist organization, it needs to be a privately held organization in which The people who are creating it and building it are ultimately the ones who are in absolute control over it, and no one can come in and oust them. Because the problem with what happened at Project Veritas is James O'Keefe. People are so shocked that James O'Keefe was removed from power. They're saying, how could he possibly be removed from Project Veritas? He built Project Veritas. He created Project Veritas. How could they possibly take him out of the leadership position? The problem is that James O'Keefe was not running Project Veritas when you look at how the business was structured. Because it was a 501c3, and Gabrielle Clark is absolutely right about this, 501c3s have too many rules and boundaries. Because it was a 501c3, James O'Keefe had to have a board. And the board runs the company. James O'Keefe reports to the board. If the board decides to remove him, then James O'Keefe is out. And that's exactly what happened at Project Veritas. The board, or at least they put him on leave, I guess. I guess they haven't officially removed him yet, but if they want to, they can. And I really hope that there's a massive public backlash so that Project Veritas does an about face. Will they do it? Who knows? Because I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that there are other nefarious actors at play. I don't think it's any coincidence that this happened right after Pfizer. Are you going to tell me you've never heard of friends or family backstabbing each other? That happens all the time. Those are the first, your friends and your family are the first people to stab you in the back in these types of situations. Happens all the time. Friends and family are not going to save you. You have to save yourself. All right? The other part of being a 501c3, 501c4 is you also are basically in bed with the government, and the government can come after you much, much, much easier. And for an organization like Project Veritas, what the fuck was he thinking? I mean, I knew he wanted to raise money and stuff like that, and it does make it much easier to raise money. But James O'Keefe's downfall in this was the business structure, and I hope he learns from it. I really do. So that's on my Substack right now. You can find it by going to Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. And while you're there, please subscribe. You can subscribe for free, and that's great. But I am doing a challenge this month. I want to get 50 new paid subscribers on my Substack for $5 a month, $50 a year. All of my support gets reinvested into doing Unwoke activism full time and having this be my full-time job so that I don't have to do consulting, I don't have to do other stuff, and I can focus on this and creating content and teaching people and helping people fight back. That's what I want to focus on. I need your help in order to be able to do it because I am not starting a nonprofit, and therefore it is going to be harder for me to raise money. I need the support of average people. I also don't want to be beholden to an organization. I don't want to be beholden to a political tribe. I don't want to be beholden to any ideology. I only want to be beholden to you and telling you what the truth is and having a commitment that whether you like it or whether you hate it, I'm going to tell you what the truth is. And sometimes you're going to like it and sometimes you're going to hate it. But I report to you. I don't report to a boss. I don't report to a board. I don't report to a party. I don't report to anyone else but the people funding my work. And I'm really lucky too, because I'm already halfway to my goal for this month, which is really awesome. If you can help me get the full goal ahead of schedule, that would be really great. So again, $5 a month, $50 a year. You can give more if you want to. If you don't want to sign up on Substack, you can head over to activelyunwoke.com/support. You'll have other ways to support my work, including becoming a Locals member, becoming a Patreon member, and making a one-time gift on the site. And I do appreciate all of that. Thank you guys for helping me make this my full-time job. All right, let's jump in. And like I said, I just want to read the letter. I just want to read the letter. So we're just going to go right to the source, and we're going to see what happened. Oh, Naruto, I did not see the super chat. I apologize. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Sorry, Nutri. I really didn't even see it. Thinking about it, it actually makes sense for Project Veritas to give people lie detector tests. Do you know how many leftist organizations would want to spy in Project Veritas? I mean, there are organizations that do give people lie detector tests. This is not like an unheard of, out of the realm of possibility thing. And so it wouldn't actually really surprise me if James O'Keefe was doing that. And I think and I think given the position that he's in, I think that it actually makes a lot of sense. I also think, listen, man, like I said, I don't think it's any mistake that this happened. I think that Project Veritas was infiltrated. That's what there's nothing else that makes sense. And I think that this letter that we're going to see is going to shed light on it. And I've seen enough of these things where letters like this, it's the letter and the grievances expressed in the letter are an excuse. They're an excuse. They wanted to get James O'Keefe out, and they drummed up a way to get him out. It wasn't that they were oh so concerned about the health and well being of the staff, because, and I say this without even having read the letter yet, because if they were oh so concerned about the health and well being of the staff, they would have done this years ago. Years ago. Because according to what we heard last night, James O'Keefe has been a holy terror for years. Now, I want to say this, and I said this last night. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I do believe that James O'Keefe is an asshole. I believe he's a very difficult person to work for. I personally would never work for James O'Keefe. He and I would butt heads. It just wouldn't work out. But you know what? Sometimes you need the asshole. And James O'Keefe is critical to Project Veritas. Sometimes the asshole needs to be in charge to get done what needs to get done. And so I'm not judging James O'Keefe. I'm not saying like he's a bad person, but he has a very specific type of personality that some people love and some people hate. And that's just the way it goes. But just because James O'Keefe is an asshole does not mean that he's guilty of what they say he did in this letter. I don't think that this has anything to do with James O'Keefe being an asshole or a nightmare boss or a workplace bully or a narcissist or any of those things. And I don't quite frankly care if he's all of those things combined because he's fucking James O'Keefe. If James O'Keefe is not reinstated at Project Veritas, one of two things is going to happen. Either Project Veritas is going to fail completely and fall apart, or Project Veritas is going to fundamentally change from the organization it is now, and it will not be any more effective than Vice News. One of those two things is going to happen if James O'Keefe is not reinstated. Mark my words. James O'Keefe may be the worst person to work for in the goddamn world. I don't care. Because he is the only person that can lead Project Veritas in the way it needs to be led. And that is why they're coming after him. They need to take him out. James O'Keefe is incredibly inconvenient to a lot of extremely powerful people. All right, let's read. This was on February 6th to the board of directors, action board of directors, and executive management. The opinions, data, and anecdotes were compiled by 1/3 of Project Veritas staff representing every department. Not all signed the letter, but all had compelling reason to contribute. Some signatories have not been the subject of abuse. Oh, hang on. I'm sorry. What? It's right here at the top. It's right here at the top. Some signatories have not been the subject of abuse, nor witnessed any abuse, but found the corroborated behavior troubling and were willing to sign. They're saying at the very effing top of the letter that some of the people that signed the letter never saw James O'Keefe do anything bad and never witnessed either to them or to anyone else, but they found the accusations troubling. Every single one of those people should be fired. Every single if James O'Keefe gets back into power, every single one of those people should be fired. This is a coup. Actually, every single signer of the letter should be fired. Every single one. I don't care if they just thought they were doing the right thing because James O'Keefe had a fucking tone one day. I don't care. Get them out. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you guys. Sure, I can. I want you to be able to see it too. Oh, there we go. Now let me see if I can get it in a place where I can read it and it can be big for you guys. Okay. That's as big as it's going to go. We'll have to make do. The undersigned are troubled and frustrated with James's management style and business acumen. These behaviors and actions are antithetical to our core values. Okay, so right off the bat, this sounds like a woke leftist SJW beginning. It is my lived experience that James O'Keefe is a meanie and it is traumatic and I could literally die. That's what that sounds like to me. Most recently, the treatment of Barry Hinckley and Tom O'Hara. Those were the two executives that were fired. One of those two executives was integral in this coup. These highly respected individuals did what they thought was right for the betterment of the organization and got berated in public on Tuesday and effectively terminated by Thursday. And Barry says, team, last night I stood up to a bully and was fired. Management by shaming and bullying is never acceptable and it doesn't belong in the workplace. I won't tolerate it personally or on behalf of my workers or direct reports. I'm proud to say I stand by my actions. It was an honor to work with you. As they say, be brave, do something. Barry Hinckley is a massive SJW grifter. I'm sorry. I can tell just by reading this. Barry Hinckley needs to go. Barry Hinckley, I'm pretty sure, is the guy that had pronouns in his LinkedIn bio. Why the F was he working at Project Veritas in the first place? Because this sounds like woke speak. These actions led to immediate communication between concerned Project Veritas members. Over the past 2 days, we collected additional examples of behavior which crossed the line. Oh my God, this is like the most woke goddamn thing I've ever read. The following bulleted items came from individuals and are edited as little as possible. Maybe they shouldn't have been edited at all if they were going to lead to the firing of the CEO. To keep the spirit of everyone, to keep the spirit of the thoughts. So we now don't even know if this is actually what the employees said, but because they're saying it was what they said in spirit. That means they edited it to say what they wanted it to say. James has become power-drunk tyrant and is exactly who he pontificates on who we should be exposing. No evidence. I'm on the side of holding James accountable for his behavior that has damaged important relationships inside and outside of Project Veritas. A great example is Spencer Meads and Eric Corcoran. Both left because they were abused and overworked. Eric Corcoran was asked to do a lie detector, I believe, and James would make derogatory statements about him to the staff because he was unhappy Eric left. Okay, so after Eric left, James shit-talked him, and Eric didn't like. I'm sorry, people are shit-talked all the time in workplaces. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm not saying, like, I would co-sign it, but it's not the worst. It happens every day. Come on. James went as far to call Spencer a pussy in Vegas, and Spencer heard him say it. Both of these guys were mission-driven and suffered through it. They were raided, and James still called Spencer that name. He never forgave them for making the decision to leave for their own mental health. Did they sign before or after it was edited? Probably after. I don't know for sure, but I would say probably after. So far, this is vomit-inducing. I agree. This is woke leftist SJW nonsense. Airing grievances leading to termination is what prevented me from speaking up in the past. The times I was accused of violating my NDA, sabotage, had my behavior labeled traitorous. I say we exhibit some patience. Oh, look at that. We have all been on the receiving end of unnecessarily, seemingly intentionally humiliating and outright cruel behavior. And I've certainly not been here long as many of you, and I don't mean to invalidate any of what you have experienced. Oh my fucking God, are you kidding me? This person Project Veritas, please hire better no, I mean, listen, if Project Veritas doesn't bring James O'Keefe back, there's no point in any of this. James, please hire better people. Because when I'm seeing, I respect your lived experience. How did this person get a job at Project Veritas? I don't mean to invalidate what any of you have lived, any of your lived experience. Conservatives suck at hiring so badly. I do believe James knows he's in over his head. James O'Keefe is in over his head. Are you kidding me? He's scared, overworked, manic on stress, and drunk on the success of the last 2 weeks. His flaws aside, his aims are genuine and he is a true leader. He just needs a push back in the right direction. I hope this potential board action is that push, the sign he needs to free himself from constantly feeling the need to hold everything tightly, trust his team, and allow himself to focus on creative while others run the stuff he doesn't actually want to be doing anyway. I mean, it is good advice to say, let other people do stuff, but if they are under the delusion that this is going to lead to James O'Keefe trusting his staff when they have literally staged a coup against him, that's never going to happen. He should never trust any of them. Patience, not mutiny. I do believe that he has the sense to recognize that when faced with an inevitability, he's run down and in need of a sabbatical. Project Veritas is strong. All we can continue to show that we will put our great work to whatever end. I mean, for an obvious SJW, that was actually kind of a fair and balanced paragraph, but I would still fire that person anyway. I don't care. So bold, brave, and beautiful. Yes, they are all very stunning and brave. Lack of transparency when mistakes are made from the top down. Example, Nancy Vaden never was suing us, and it was told to our entire company as if it was absolutely true. Davis was a bad hire. We all know that. But when I tried early on to prevent him from assuming so much power and authority, knowing he couldn't handle it, I received a classic. If you don't agree, there's the door. So, one of the grievances is someone didn't like someone else that was hired and said they didn't like them and they were told to F off. That's that happens every single day in every workplace in the country. I'm sorry. Grow up. I mean, I'm sure he'll try to sue if he's not reinstated, but the fact of the matter is that James does not run Project Veritas. The board runs Project Veritas. His issue is with the board. Nick, if he comes back, clean house, everyone. Yes, I 1000% agree. James should not leave anyone in this position that had any involvement in this at all. They should be permanently banished and shamed for staging a goddamn coup. Hang on a sec, guys. I'm just getting my studio up in front of me so I can actually see what I'm looking at here. There we go. Okay. Another example in group settings is the all hands in respect to Jutsis. Hang on, sorry, that's still on the screen. Leaving the organization. Spain had the bravery to say, we should have the ability to disagree and to paraphrase, we are not disposable. Yes, you are. You are absolutely disposable. All of you are disposable except James O'Keefe. James O'Keefe is the only person who is not disposable. I can say that with absolute certainty. James O'Keefe was combative, conflating internal versus external issues. This stifles valuable internal voices, and we need everyone to have a dialogue in a respectful manner. We still haven't fully recovered the losses of fall of 2021, and now over a year later, we've lost more people through resignation or termination. And I fear that on the path we are on, we will not only prevent the growth of the organization, but we will be led to a place where the organization doesn't exist. No, the path you are on now is where the organization doesn't exist. Yes, how dare James negatively impact their lived experiences? I received complaints from an FBI. Holy shit. I received complaints from an FBI source about James. You don't say. You're honestly telling me that one of the reasons that James O'Keefe is being ousted is the FBI doesn't like him? Diamondback was upset about witnessing James's treatment of staff during his interview in DC. He said that James was snapping at employees and ordering them around in a very curt manner. Diamondback called me after and told me James needs a people management class and that he was a diva. I reported this to Jen and not sure what was done after that. Recently, Diamondback was introduced to a high dollar value Project Veritas donor named X. During the dinner, James offered Diamondback a job with Project Veritas, and X was extremely supportive of this. James did not end up following through with hiring Diamondback due to cultural differences. The cultural differences were Diamondback's noting James' micromanagement behavior. X caught wind of this and told Diamondback she was turned off by James' overpromising and boastful demeanor during the dinner, and that he intends to pull out of supporting Project Veritas. So James didn't want to hire a Fed because Diamondback is the Fed, right? So James O'Keefe doesn't want to hire a Fed, and everyone is upset about that. Or one donor maybe was upset about that if they're being truthful in this. Noel and I introduced a high net worth husband and wife to Project Veritas. They are now a Project Veritas high dollar donor. They had been friends of ours for a while. Between 6 to 8 months ago, the husband told me that he was extremely turned off by what James asked of him. In one of their first meetings, James asked him in a rather demanding way that he write a $75,000 check to Project Veritas on the spot. This made him feel uncomfortable, but then he continued the relationship with Project Veritas because he believes in what they're doing. Then they attended a donor event in Napa, California, where James was present. The wife asked James for a photo, and he was very rude and publicly turned her down. She was humiliated to the point of tears. They have miraculously continued support for Project Veritas, but whenever I see them, they have something negative to say about James's behavior or ego, as they put it, and I feel Project Veritas may lose them as donors soon. Okay, I will absolutely co-sign that if James O'Keefe wouldn't take a photo with someone who just gave them $75,000, that seems like a dick move. But it's also one of those things that's like they were literally still giving them money. They couldn't have been that upset because they were literally still giving them money. FBI, does someone know how to FOIA request? I have a workshop on that on activelyunwoke.com slash training or slash on demand rather. But that's for schools. I don't know how to FOIA the FBI. It's sad, embarrassing, and increasingly becoming James's standard for how he treats supporters. Are these from the same people? Do you know what they're doing? Do you know what they're doing? They're making it seem like they have more grievances than they do because they're taking this. I'm pretty sure this is the same grievance. It's like this Diamondback one. Okay? This bullet point here on the end of this page and the first one at the top, that's the same grievance. But they're splitting them into two to make it seem like they have more grievances. This grievance and this grievance are the same person, but they're splitting them into two different bullet points to make it seem like there are more grievances than there actually are. Do you guys get that? It's like in school when you change the typeface of your essay to make it 8 pages instead of 6 and you use like Courier New because Courier New is the best font that adds the most pages to your essays. Like you needed to write an 8-page essay, you only got to like 6.5, and so you changed the font to Courier New to make it seem longer than it is. That's exactly what Project Veritas is doing here. It's like they changed the fucking font to make the paper seem longer. It's sad and embarrassing and increasingly becoming James's standard for how he treats supporters. Honestly, it's wild and incredibly irrational behavior for someone who intentionally or publicly and internally claims to be the only one raising money. I was yelled at in a small meeting in O'Keefe's James's office. I'm not going to try to say his last name for expressing my concern on the employee's use of time and spent. Was told it wasn't my place to question his decision. He's right about that, even though it turned out to be the correct business decision and the one we ultimately followed. This reads like junior employees complaining about their boss. I've seen so much of this shit. It's like, my boss hurt my feelings and I'm going to complain about it for 3 weeks afterwards because he hurt my feelings and I don't know how to exist in a professional work environment, and he hurt my feelings and he was a big meanie, but nothing really happened that was actually that important. That's what this entire thing reads like. The meeting was loud enough that people asked how I was after I left the office. By close of business that day, We were able to have a productive conversation. At Democracy Partners' trial in public, I was yelled at in front of juniors when he was hungry, and then he took the 8-month pregnant woman's sandwich. Barry, Dan, Tom, and Eric were the subject of bullying on the leadership meeting with at least 10 people present. No productive outcome resulted that needed a forum of everyone present. There is no details of what the bullying was. Saying that bullying happened does not mean that bullying actually happens. Guys, workplace bullying, and I know this because I wrote a whole dissertation about it. Workplace bullying has a very specific definition. People say all the time, I was bullied, I was bullied, I was bullied. And what they mean most of the time is that person had a tone that I didn't like and they told me something I don't want to hear. That is not workplace bullying. Someone having a tone is not workplace bullying. Someone telling you something you don't want to hear is not workplace bullying. There is a very specific definition. A follow up meeting after the incident with Jillian, Tom, Joanne, and John. In regards to a high level email, James berated the team due to a poor business decision, which was later retracted. Verbal abuse was so severe, other departments came over and apologized for James' behavior. Everyone is operating in fear because James is erratic. One doesn't know whether one will meet his needs and expectation since the target is constantly moving and priorities are shifting. That is oh my god, this is the biggest nothing I've ever seen in my life. Laura quit because she was humiliated and demeaned by James for not being fast enough to give a critical mass story even though she wasn't hired on as a journalist in front of all journalists. In a personal conversation with Jared after he left Project Veritas, it was discussed that his departure was due to personality clashes between Jared and James. Jared is also held in high regard to Project Veritas staff and played an instrumental role. So this is literally saying, so the correct thing to do when you don't like your boss is to quit and find another job, to be honest. That's usually going to be your path of least resistance. Quit and find another job. So it sounds here that Jared didn't like working with James. I can probably commiserate with that. James is an asshole. I wouldn't want to work with him either. That's why I wouldn't go get a job at Project Veritas. However, Jared did the correct thing, which was to leave and go get another job. Hopefully, Jared is much happier. And now this person is saying, someone that I liked left and quit, and I don't like that they left and quit. People quit jobs all the time. All the theater stuff and how he handles and how he, and how that is handled makes me feel very uneasy. I understand it is rationalized as raising awareness of our brand, but the cost of that is in both in financial and sense, both in a financial sense as well as a personnel and resource becomes priority over why donors actually give us money, which is to conduct undercover investigations which expose waste, fraud, and abuse. In the end, we are in deficit now. Our fans and potential fans beyond do not respond positively to all that stuff because all they want is for us to carry out the mission. This is a junior employee. I'm telling you, this is a junior employee that made this complaint. You want to know why? Because marketing the business and the brand of the, well, I guess it's not a business, nonprofit, marketing the organization is an investment that is worth having because marketing the organization engages the public with the organization, which helps spread the stories that they need the public to spread because God knows the news isn't going to cover it. Project Veritas is only as effective as it is because the public spreads the stories. Additionally, several donors have expressed their concern with their money being used to produce a show like Project Veritas Experience. Well, then they don't have to give to it. When you're giving to a nonprofit, when you're making a donation to a nonprofit, you can restrict your gift. You can say, James, I'm going to give you $75,000. I don't want you using it for this Broadway thing, though. I want you using it for undercover journalism. Can we just put a stipulation that if I give you $75,000, you're going to use it for undercover journalism? And the answer would be yes. Because when you donate money to nonprofits, you can put restrictions on the gift. So if they don't want to fund the Broadway stuff, they don't have to fund the Broadway stuff. This is such an easily fixable problem. It's not even funny. I would describe Project Veritas' current environment with this saying, the beatings will continue until morale improves. Okay, but does anyone have any evidence or any specific examples other than James O'Keefe hurt my feelings? In a recent And by the way, I've done workplace bullying investigations, and if James O'Keefe was actually a workplace bully, they should have fucking hired me to do the investigation because I would have produced something way better than this. In a recent donor meeting with James, his behavior has been arrogant and dismissive of a donor if they do not just sign up to give us 5 or 6 figure donations. This happened in the past few weeks in a meeting with a donor in Miami as well as with a donor in Beverly Hills. He has not been listening to what donors have to say. James, I mean, I guess is their fundraising down? Is their fundraising suffering? That would be a question I would have. James is frequently coming across as though we are desperate for funds and it is everyone's duty to send us money. Donors are hesitating about the size and whether the gift should be sent to Project Veritas. At a donor event in Greenwich in September, James was 1 hour and 15 minutes late. We had a room with 100 people waiting for him to speak. People commented afterwards that he could have at least apologized for being so late. This is a good example of James not realizing that everyone's time is important and should be respected. I mean, that's a fair enough point, but again, none of this is rising to the level of removing James O'Keefe from the organization. At best, what this amounts to is, James, you're getting an executive coach. And you're sitting down with the executive coach and you're going to talk, and you're going to talk about how you don't piss donors off. That is probably the most that should have happened in this situation, which quite frankly, if they got the right executive coach, would probably be really good for him anyway. September 2021. All hands right after the flood. I went into the city with James to produce stand up for the big release that evening, arranging the shoot, directing the shots, wrote the script, and acted as his teleprompter on the sidewalk. While we were there, we met Matt, who rode around with us the rest of the day. While in the car, James was upset about a reel edit that was just sent for review from someone at the Radisson. I told him I'd take care of it and began calling the guys there to adjust his notes. Not 2 minutes later, he calls Freddie after I just had, tells him the same thing I told him, looks at me and then looks at Matt, still a total stranger riding with us, and goes, "See, this is why we need to hire a good producer. I have to do everything myself." This coming after weeks of successful COVID vax releases. While I was on the road with him the entire time, he had me consider quitting while on the city boat at night. You know what? At least that's a fucking example. It's still not to the level of removing James from his position, but it is to the level of hiring James an executive coach. And yes, this is a great point, Nate of the South. Even if you're not an executive, you should get an executive coach, a performance coach. Like, coaches are great, man. I have a coach myself. My coach is doing a stream starting in 13 minutes on Psychic Tree, which is not what he coaches me on. He coaches me on other stuff. But anyway, but at least this is an example. This is like the first really concrete, detailed example we've seen in this entire letter. James's constant habit of publicly demeaning people's roles and responsibilities, almost in a way to then step in himself with this, "See, I'm the one who fixed it" mentality. Example, junior editors. I don't know what that means. James treated Eric with hatred over Nick, going so far as to have Vanessa strip away his title of chief of staff just after just a few months and give it and took Nick's failure as an employee out on him specifically. James ran a narrative through the entire company that he was a toxic employee and not a leader. The reality is that Nick was a bad hire, pushed through by James, and Eric saw it and voiced it for 6 months. Well, I'm going to say Eric is still at Project Veritas. Eric is at Project Veritas. Eric didn't quit. Eric doesn't need anyone to stand up and defend him. Eric is a big boy. Very nice guy, by the way. I've spoken to him on a couple occasions. He's a really nice guy, but he doesn't need anyone to defend him. Former executive producer Joe quit over James's treatment and being forced to come back into the office while COVID was still very fresh. And he was an older man with health problems. Okay, that's kind of legit. I shouldn't have made fun of that. That was kind of legit. Would make rude comments and tense internally and tease internally to others about Joe because of his want to remain safe during COVID's beginnings. That's kind of legit. I'm sorry. He probably should have been more sympathetic. Still doesn't rise to the level to fire him. This is like this is a list of every single nitpicky grievance you can possibly come up with. And a lot of this stuff is probably twisted out of context. A lot of this stuff is probably twisted to make James seem like the absolute devil, but there's no smoking gun here. James has constantly been told to be wary, or excuse me, Jake has constantly been told to be wary of James's attitude or mood. It literally alters everyone's day and workflow. Not to make excuses from inner bickering and such, but these problems trickle from the top down. After Nancy was fired, Eric and Mario asked questions from James as to why the decision was made and expressed concerns for the future of Project Veritas due to massive turnover in executive leadership. That happens in businesses all the time. Initially, James sent aggressive messages in response and called Mario, but appeared to agree to disagree and move on. He never moved on. Weeks later, we held an all hands for a week at the Radisson Hotel in New Rochelle. The entire week, Mario, Eric, and Michael were publicly humiliated in every session possible in front of the whole staff. The three, see, when they say things like they were humiliated in every session possible, that kind of sounds like a junior staff member whining and complaining because James O'Keefe had a tone. And I don't believe it. The three of them were interrogated and asked if we still had friendships with Nancy, with serious suggestions that we should cease all contact. As we know, it was actually unconstitutional freedom of association to tell people who they can and can't talk to. Your Project Veritas is not the federal government. You they with a straight face said Project Veritas was violating their constitutional rights by telling them not to associate with a former employee. And listen, I don't think that there is any Project Veritas doesn't have any standing to tell someone who to talk to and who they can't talk to. But the fact of the matter is that even if Project Veritas says don't talk to Nancy, that's still not violating your constitutional right. Project Veritas isn't the government. Project Veritas can have whatever rules it wants. And by the way, maybe Nancy was a spy and you just didn't know it and James did and doesn't want you giving her information. It was an outrageous, veiled demand. Is my dissertation in my Substack? No, but you can Google it and find it if you really want to read it. It's boring, man. Come on. You can Google it and find it. I'll post a link in locals or something. For the whole week, Eric, Mario, Villani and others were so severely verbally attacked by James that the staff morale dropped to an all-time low. Mario believed he was going to be fired every single day when walking into the office in October 2021. So a year and a half ago. My God. It was the most vivid, intimidating. So you're telling me this has been going on for at least a year and a half and no one got video of any of this? It was the most vivid intimidation tactics ever seen. James has held a grudge against these staff members since then, where he was purposefully cited these September 2021 events and the all hands call in 2022 when he was upset. He holds the grudge, and it's become a very awkward work environment, to say the least, with James ever since then. When Eric and Jake suggested to start using Twitter Spaces for the organization, James liked the idea. When it came time to do the first one, James would ignore, disregard, become busy, or use the bathroom to avoid Eric's rundown of what to do and how to do it. When then James became very frustrated because he wasn't properly prepped. Okay, so James didn't go to training, he didn't know what he was doing, and he got frustrated. Which again, fine, okay, yeah, that's kind of a dick thing to do, but it's not a firing, it's not a firing violation. Eric was forced to take a polygraph test nearly a year after the diary had been leaked, and Neil had left Project Veritas for no legitimate reason. If you can't trust your own team, let alone your own team leaders, what kind of trust do you claim to have? It's bullshit. The abuse and mental aftermath have been incredibly disgusting and demeaning. Well, we talked about this earlier. There are organizations that require their employees to take polygraph tests. It kind of makes sense to me that Project Veritas would be one of those organizations. Now, what I will say is it should be applied evenly, but Eric is their chief of staff. Eric is like one of the head guys at Project Veritas. I mean, if anyone should probably be taking a lie detector test, he would probably be on the list. Jake was a witness or victim to name calling that was belittling to himself and others. Whenever there was an edit, graphic, minor mistake, technical error with equipment, James would say to Freddie, these junior editors need to be trained in a demeaning tone, sometimes with a vulgar language added if James was really upset. There was one complaint that led to the top of the chain of command, recollection on who has been forgotten. Jake was in Colorado for the filming of the SI of Chris Jax. They ended up back at the airport in the middle of nowhere, literally, and James requested he send the footage, which were massive files, back to HQ instantly. Fake urgency, be cut. Jake did his best with the limited Wi Fi in the nowhere airport that was still available. James would constantly be asking how long it was taking, trying not to displease James. Jake stayed in the small building as best to send as best he could, but was hurried by James to then get back on the private plane because of the time-sensitive scheduling for takeoff. There would be massive charge for late takeoff. There were concerns of a mole in the office leaking information to the public. A majority of the staff were required to travel to HQ to be interrogated by two private investigators who were hired to identify the mole. Although I was told by the PIs that my story checked out, as well as several of my colleagues expressing confidence that I was not the mole, James brought me in personally to personally question me a second time, namely questioning my mission drivenness and loyalty to the organization. After the investigation took place, the staff were never provided a conclusion around who was the mole, and morale was so low that colleagues were questioning their trust in one another, which led to less collaboration and overall less effectiveness and negative work environment. So, what they're doing is they're taking the same grievance and they're putting it in this letter multiple times. This is very clear to me. So, again, like I told you at the beginning, they're trying to get as many bullet points in this letter as possible to make it seem just like absolute. It's like when you pad your papers when you're in school. So what they're doing is they're taking the same incident and having multiple people complain about the same incident so that the same incident shows up multiple times. So it happens one time, several people are pissed off about it, and every single person that's pissed off about it gets a bullet point. So it seems like a bigger deal than it actually is. It starts to seem like it's more than one incident, but it's not more than one incident. It's one incident that they've replicated the complaint several times. Does that make sense to people? All right, guys, I just want to remind everyone, and again, I'm really sorry I scheduled over Joshua, but if you are a Joshua fan and you want to go watch his premiere, The Astrology of Crime, the Charles Stewart case, I want to encourage everyone to do that. Go watch Joshua's premiere. Go support Joshua. I feel horrible that I'm scheduling this over him. Go watch Joshua. Tell him I said hello, and the recording will be here in the morning. I mean, I don't have any evidence that Eric is involved in this. Matt, yes, but I haven't. Just because people are putting Eric's name in does not, unless I see Eric's name at the bottom of this letter, I'm going to assume that Eric's not involved. All right, guys, please mount that like button for me. Let's continue. Bobby was called at noon on November 17th by Jutsi at the demand of James to get a journalist to Mohawk ASAP to elicit education subjects. Bobby's girlfriend was also asked to go as cover. All of this required last minute packing, flight, and her getting let off work early, and we made it happen. While at Mohawk listening, James showed up to the bar 6 to 10 feet away and began engaging subjects himself, swaying from the plan. James's personal audio also failed, and my audio did not catch his conversation, not my responsibility, too far away. Following this, James lectured Bobby and his girlfriend in the hotel room. After that, two different employees came to Bobby personally saying that James was blaming the loss of audio on Bobby's girlfriend, a non employee or contractor, and talking mad shit on her. Bobby nor his girlfriend were ever thanked or acknowledged by James for their efforts to get to New York ASAP, but instead ridiculed behind their backs to colleagues for a mistake that was purely on James. All right, so that apparently is the end of the effing grievances. Ah, Jesus Christ. And again, nothing. And I feel like I'm just like I'm repeating myself over and over and over again. There is not a single grievance that I read in that entire letter that would lead me to the conclusion that the best thing to do is to remove James O'Keefe from his position. This is just about hiring an executive coach. That's it. At most, that's what should happen. And I'm sorry, James O'Keefe has probably been an asshole the entire time he's been running Project Veritas. None of this was new information. The fact that it's being drummed up now and it's written like a woke SJW demand letter leads me to the unequivocal conclusion, and we haven't even finished reading it yet, that this is a setup to get James O'Keefe out to destroy Project Veritas. There's no other conclusion I can draw. This is not real. I have never, and I mean never, seen a grievance letter this flimsy. And I've seen a lot of grievance letters. Again, one of my specialties is workplace bullying. Nothing in this letter that I have seen rises to the level of workplace bullying that is so egregious that it leads to firing of the critical CEO. Generally, these patterns of behavior severely limit our ability to execute the Project Veritas mission. That's provably wrong. That's provably wrong. They just had the biggest story they've ever had with Pfizer. You're telling me that James O'Keefe's behavior over the past 2 years is so egregious that you just can't possibly execute your mission? Then how the fuck did you get the Pfizer story? That makes no sense. If James O'Keefe's behavior was so egregious that it was going to lead to the company failing, then you wouldn't have gotten the Pfizer story. We feel it's our duty as employees and leaders of Project Veritas that care about its future to have a voice and demand needed change. It's kind of like when students do a petition in school where they say, "We feel it is important on the students to have a voice and demand this change." It's the same thing. We ask the board to address the following: cease bullying and erratic behavior, treat every person with respect and integrity. Business interactions need to be carried out with business acumen. Cease micromanaging. We are all hired by Project Veritas for leadership qualities. No, you weren't. No, you weren't. You are not hired by Project Veritas for your leadership qualities. I'm going to tell you that right now. The people who wrote this letter were not hired by Project Veritas for their leadership qualities. They are almost all junior employees. And to be honest, if they are not junior employees, then they shouldn't be in the positions that they're in, because this letter reads like it was written by a junior employee. Leaders provide a diverse set of skills and professional history. We're not cut from the same cloth, and we all have unique managerial styles and methods to achieve success. As long as we are all contributing to the betterment of the mission, let leaders lead. Allow for failure, and their success will be amplified. The people need guidance, they will ask for it. It's like some of this stuff is not technically wrong. It's not technically wrong, but the way that they're writing it and the context just gives me a complete aversion to it. Cease undermining. Our donors are the lifeblood of the organization. We need to have a unified front and expose internal conflict to our financial supporters. Internally allow the chain of command to do its job, both upward and downward. Ensure controls are implemented to the executive to execute on the above without fear of personal reprisal. Ongoing, the board needs to be more proactive to ensure we don't backslide, regardless of who is in the leadership position. Oh shit, Eric did sign it. Oh shit. So I was wrong. I'm sorry. He needs to be fired then. I like Eric. I really do. He's a nice guy. That's too bad. We are writing this because we value the organization that James has built and what we've become. No one else is doing the work of Project Veritas, and we love it. What we do for our audience, we do incredibly well. However, we can't become even greater until we unleash the full potential of the organization. The only product we have is the material that comes from the people in the organization. If we don't make these changes, we will fail to attract and retain the best people. We have the moral courage to say what needs to be said. Continue down the path we are on, and we will have an army of yes men who wouldn't dare pen this letter. We are resilient. Failure is not an option. Be brave. Do something. Wow. And then we have the signers of the letter. I'm sorry. They all need to go. Every single one of them need to go. They all need to be fired. There is not a single thing in this letter that I care about. In the grand scheme of things, when it is compared with the impact that James O'Keefe and Project Veritas can have on the world. I'm not going to read out the names because I'm not going to pronounce them. Like, people can go look at the letter for themselves. Unbelievable. Okay, is there any more to this? Oh, from employees that both signed and didn't sign the letter. Oh God, look at this. This is our moment to make history. I hope James can realize we're doing this out of love for the mission. It's not about sucking, it's about being able to do it without him because the brand It's about being able to do it without him because the brand is more powerful than any one individual. No, it's not. That is wrong. There is honestly no Project Veritas without us. They all think they're fucking irreplaceable. Oh wow, literally everyone is here. I'd like to propose a group call to talk about how everyone feels about what's been going on, how we feel about James's leadership, and how we are going to react to any news about the board meeting. We need to be aligned and we need to be heard. Everyone is righteously upset because of James. Let the board take care of it. I'm serious. This is important. I get if you want to walk, but I want to hear from you and I want the truth. So the board can talk to James honestly on Monday. It's important. Project Veritas is about to decide if we have a company of yes men or a company of independent thinkers. The distinction will never be made more clear than this week. And we will compromise and present to the board something so amazing that this organization will last beyond all of us. Look at this. This right here says James O'Keefe is not Project Veritas. Yes, he is. I cannot believe these fucking people. They are completely disconnected from reality. I'm sorry. Rule number 3. No more public crucifixions of staff because they disagree with terrible decisions at Project Veritas. Demand. They're actually making a list of demands. Apologize for defaming key staff who were fired or left, but love Project Veritas and gave everything to this place, and then were defamed. Rule number 4, we are a family of values, not a cult of personality. Rule number 1, you can't spit in an employee's face over a tweet. True story. quite literally, was screaming so wildly and loud within inches of my face that it indeed happened. We need to present to the board conditions on of working that we will not compromise on. They basically staged a this is a struggle session. We get to lay out how we are treated, and we should present to the board our wants and needs to make sure we as employees are heard by James individually and as a collective. We have the opportunity to create our rules and redefine. No, you don't have the opportunity to redefine James O'Keefe's relationship with you. I am sorry. No, I am sorry you don't like his tone. That is ridiculous. To really think that a group of you can amass power where James O'Keefe is going to get on his knees and beg you to stay and negotiate? Bullshit. Who is hiring at Project Veritas? You know what? I don't even think it was the nonprofit structure that did them in anymore. I mean, it was certainly made it easier for them to remove James from his role, but I don't think it was the nonprofit structure anymore. It was their hiring. How is it possible that Project Veritas has this many woke people working for them? How is this possible? We have the power to hold him accountable. He mustn't stumble during the time that try men's souls. We must rise and create something greater for all of us. The future of Project Veritas. This is about keeping us here and making sure we aren't walked on. Rule number 6. Trust those who have institutional knowledge, history, and intuition of making the right decisions. Discuss accordingly. I remain complacent because in the end I believe in the mission so much, but to remain silent as the problem worsens, I would feel like a hypocrite, which is one of the very things our organization sets out to expose. Rule number 7, no more fake urgency. Compromise is made when multiple parties agree, meaning James must be a part of it. It seems he is unwilling. Time will tell. If one end is absolute, there will be no compromise. Thus, it is all pointless. If we don't give a chance for change, whether big or small, this has to be the opportunity. Us continuing to work and not speaking up has allowed the behavior to continue and makes us look like we don't care. If anyone attempts to retaliate against any of you for this, I will go to war for you. And then they Project Veritas's core values. They holy shit. Okay, their ethical values. All right, that's stuff they already created. I thought that they were actually using their rules. Wow. 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 Yes, he was. He was one of the ringleaders. Yes, he was. All right, guys. I'm going to put a poll in the chat. Do you think James deserves to be fired? And if you disagree with me, go ahead and disagree with me. Disagreeing with me is fine. I want to know your real thoughts here. Polls in the chat. I want to know what you think. I think I've been pretty clear about what I think. This reads like middle school. Like middle school. I just don't understand this. I don't understand how these people are. I mean, I guess if you're only around like these people all day, every day, and you're not listening to outside voices, I guess maybe it's possible that you see the world like this, but I just do not. And Eric, I'm so fucking disappointed in Eric. What is Eric saying on his Twitter? I am so disappointed that Eric is a signer of this letter. I really am. Eric is a nice guy. What? Yo, check this out. Check this out. This is Eric. He's actually saying that this is tabloid bullshit. He's saying this is tabloid bullshit. Let his team wipe p-fertility from the trends, but tabloid bullshit getting top 10 treatment. And tweeting the image of James O'Keefe trending. Eric is a smart guy. Did he really think that this wasn't going to be a big deal? I am flabbergasted by this. I really am. Absolutely flabbergasted. Yeah, he's not saying anything. Wow. Let me see what you guys are answering on the poll. 91% of you agree with me. James O'Keefe should not be fired over this. James O'Keefe in no way, shape, or form should be fired over this. Ridiculous. Oh, God. I'm honestly conflicted about whether I actually believe this is like infiltration to just get James O'Keefe, or whether this is a group of employees who is just doing low level bitching and complaining because they're upset that James O'Keefe has a tone. And the yes votes are troll votes. Yeah, I think that's probably true to her too. Okay. In a world in which James O'Keefe obviously isn't being targeted because he just nailed Pfizer's ass to a wall. We're just going to play pretend for a second because I think that that's actually what this is. And I'm pretty proud of myself for calling it last night that this is all bullshit. Let's set aside the possibility that this is infiltration, even though I don't think that's an out of the realm possibility. What I would do if I were Project Veritas is I would reverse course immediately, announce that James isn't going anywhere, announcing he's just taking a 2-week vacation, which, to be quite frank, he probably needs. Jetafire, I need to talk to you at some point. Good to see you. I have important news, Jetafire. So I don't think a 2-week vacation is bad for James O'Keefe. I think, if anything, what I do see in this, and I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt for just a moment, it does seem like he's under a lot of stress and probably needs a vacation and probably needs to decompress a little bit and detox and go sit on a beach and drink some margaritas and go sing some show tunes in a karaoke bar and relax, okay? I can completely get on board with that. What troubles me is that these employees, one, believe that their grievances over James O'Keefe's tone outweighs the value that James O'Keefe brings to the organization. And they truly believe that James O'Keefe is not the face of the organization. That gives me pause. That tells me that perhaps they have miscalculated just slightly. And so in a world where we're putting infiltration on the shelf for a moment, what I would do if I was them is I would immediately announce that James O'Keefe will be returning as the head of Project Veritas, and then let James go take a fucking vacation. and allow him some time to think and some time to decompress. And then when James comes back, then you deal with the situation that they staged a fucking coup. And what might happen if James O'Keefe decides that he is comfortable with this not being infiltrate. Listen, man, never assign to malice what you can assign to stupidity. It is highly, 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 highly possible that this could have been the result of stupidity. Like stupidity. And so if this was just the result of stupidity, there could be a reality in which maybe there would be like a negotiation and James feels better and well, yeah, Reed was there, so it makes sense. Sorry, this is a different subject. So Reed Coverdale was one of the people who were there, and so good. Fucking finally. Finally, it got covered on Timcast. The thing I was complaining about for like a week straight, the Don Bulldog assault. I didn't even think of that. Thank you for letting me know that Reed talked about that. Well, it does take a man, apparently, to speak to Tim because I begged Tim to talk about it for a fucking week. I sent him all the footage, but Reed Coverdale goes on his show months after the fact. And all of a sudden, we're covering it. But Reed Coverdale was there. He was there. And so I don't mind that Reed goes like the fact that it finally got spoken about on that show is good. I wish it had happened before the election, but it didn't turn out to make a difference. Yeah. Anyway, so now if James takes his 2-week vacation and decides that this was a hostile takeover, that there was infiltration, that this was a coup, then he should fire every single person involved. None of these people should be trusted again and again. It really pains me to say that because I like one of the people that's on this letter. I really do. That makes me sad. You know, you just never know. You just never know about people. There were better ways to handle it that weren't this way. And again, I'm going to go back to the reality in which this is attributed to stupidity rather than to malice. And I'm not saying Michael Malice when we say I'm saying ill will, ill intent. If this was just about changing James O'Keefe's behavior, there were other ways to handle it that were not staging a coup. There were other things they could have done. This is like the nuclear option. Trying to get him removed from power is like the nuclear option. There are other things you do before it gets to that level. It just seems like this whole thing is being run by children and it all got way, way, way out of control. He obviously needs a vacation if what is said in this letter is true. He obviously needs a vacation. There is no disputing this. The very minimum that needs to happen is he needs a vacation. There is nothing wrong with that. There is no shame in that. He needs a vacation. But even if this was attributed to stupidity rather than to malice, I still think they need to go. They staged a fucking coup. They staged a coup. And that shouldn't be acceptable. At the very least, they need to get put on a massive probation. It just makes me sad. It really does. It just makes me sad. So many ways they could have handled this. That was not the nuclear option. And this is what they chose. Over these fucking grievances. My God. Well, I'm really glad we got to read the letter. I'm really glad we got to see it for ourselves. That's going to wrap up stream number 1, guys. But that doesn't mean I'm ending tonight. I'm going to go take a 5-minute break. 5-minute break. And when I end this stream, if I've set it up correctly, you're going to be redirected to my next stream, in which we are going to talk about why Shane Cashman is absolutely correct. We're going to look over part 2 of the Eliza Blue piece, and we're going to watch a little quartering, complaining about Shane Cashman blasting him as an idiot, and we're going to watch a little Chrissy Mayer. It's going to be fun. This is true late night quality streams, guys. But I'm going to be back in 5 minutes. If you don't want to stick around for the Shane Cashman one, that's cool, man. Thank you for dropping by. Please make sure you mount the like button on the way out the door. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel. I will be continuing to follow this Project Veritas story because it's interesting to me from an organizational psychology perspective. So if there's more updates to be had, then we will have them. Jennifer, I got you. But I'm going to end this stream and we're going to go over to the next one. And guys, as a reminder, if you have not yet subscribed to my Substack, Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, and check out the article I posted today about the hostile takeover, about why I think 501c3s are really bad business structures for these types of organizations because they allow for hostile takeovers and coup d'etats. All right, guys, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I will see some of you in the Shane Cashman stream coming right up.